Welcome to the Jaron Jarvis channel. I am Jaron Jarvis. Today, I would like to introduce to you, my little boy. My protector. We met shortly after my 11th birthday. I was a bit of an odd kid, never really fit in, but I had my small group of outcast friends and I was happy with that. I was obsessed with the supernatural. My birthday party had a horror theme. We binge-watched horror films, read scary stories in the dark, anything we could do to scare ourselves. My favorite gift that year was a Ouija board. My father didn't ban me from using the Ouija board, but he banned it from the house. You see, he's Native American, and he was very connected with spirituality. Ouija boards were evil, they let the evil in. In my adolescent mind, however, it was just a toy. Nothing would ever really happen. My story starts in the house next door. I grew up with the girl next door. We were practically sisters. She was only 2 years younger than me, but she had a 1-year-old sister. It's not that her mom wanted me to babysit her, just that she wanted an extra pair of eyes on the baby. Thinking we'd have some fun scaring each other in a house with no adult supervision, I brought the Ouija board. I'd never even opened it. Now was our chance. It started out pretty innocently, each of us pushing the planchette around to scare the other. Of course, neither of us were actually scared. We knew what we were doing. We were 9 and 11. We couldn't help but giggle and give ourselves away. Here's where the giggling stopped. Is there anyone here with us? Yes. Silence. We took our hands off the planchette. We swore to each other neither one of us pushed it. How old are you? Nothing. If this was real, maybe we phrased it wrong. Okay. How old were you when you died? 6. We stared at each other hard. No giggling, not a trace of a smirk. This was real. We knew it. Are you a boy or a girl? Boy, can you tell us your name? Huey. Now we laughed a little. Huey, come on, that's not scary. She did it. I just knew it. Damn, she had a good poker face. That's when the baby sat up in the playpen giggling and laughing at nothing. The dog was lying next to the playpen. She's starting whining. She didn't like what was going on, we could tell. That's when we boxed up the Ouija board and put it on the porch. My dad later disposed of it for me and that was the end of it. 8 years went by without incident. We joked about Huey from time to time, but that's all it was, our little inside joke. We both moved on with our lives. I graduated high school and enrolled in the local community college. I met a guy. I wasn't careful. I got pregnant. We moved in together. He quickly became abusive. I was 19. That's when it started. Newton's third law states, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Similarly, for every abusive action taken against me, there was an unexplained action taken against him. He never tied them together, but I did. There were dozens of minor actions, but I won't get into those as I barely remember them. The big ones are what I can't seem to forget. I used to buy glass milk bottles that were exchanged at the store once empty. Until I could make a trip to the store, I would set the empty bottle on the top of the refrigerator, far from the edges to be safe. When the verbal abuse started, one of those bottles tumbled off the refrigerator, shattering at his feet. It missed him by inches. When he became enraged over the cost of a new cell phone and threw a knife at me, which narrowly missed my face, sticking in the wall next to me, the globe on the overhead light fell, hitting his shoulder on the way down. It missed his head by inches. I can't deny that my mind wandered to Huey, but it had been 8 years. 8 years without incident. I was overthinking things. I must have left the milk bottle too close to the edge. Maybe I didn't tighten the screws enough after I replaced the bulb in the overhead light. We moved when my son was 6 months old and things seemed to get better for a time. The baby acted oddly sometimes, but he was just a baby. He'd sit up in the playpen with his back to me, staring at the wall, and laugh. No big deal. To this day, my son still finds everything funny. He's just a happy kid, that's all. Still, I thought of Huey. I thought of how the baby laughed and the dog cried. Several months after our move, the abuse started again. He went right back to his old ways as soon as we had settled. Every time I opened my mouth, every word I spoke, was wrong in his eyes. He'd yell, he'd scream, and I'd cry. He threw kitchen chairs at me. They weren't small chairs either. They were the kind on wheels, you know, the big ugly rolling chairs from the 80s. They were heavy. Luckily, their weight gave me the upper hand and I always dodged them. He started waking up with scratches all down his back. He blamed me. The playpen was the worst of all incidents, the final straw, the breaking point. I don't even remember why he was so angry. I picked the baby up from the playpen. He was about a year old now. Then he picked up the playpen. He hurled it at me. I had my son in my arms. No time to dodge. I had a split second to turn my back on him, shielding the baby, before it hit me. Not a word was spoken after that. I put the baby to bed. I went to bed. He slept on the couch. Our sleep was short-lived. I was startled awake by the strangest dream. It's not that it was scary, really, just unexpected. There was a child in my doorway, maybe 6 years old. He was crouched down, feet underneath him, one hand on the floor, the other poised in the air as if he were pretending it was a paw. He made a swiping motion with that hand and roared, not a real roar, the roar of a child playing make-believe, pretending to be a lion. What woke me was that I really heard that innocent make-believe roar. Of course, there was nothing in the doorway. I made my way out to the living room. Maybe the TV was on and that's what I heard. I came down the hallway and he was sitting straight up on the couch, staring at me, when I entered the living room. I knew something was wrong. I'd never seen this man look scared before. He was the one to be feared, not afraid. Did you hear it too? He asked. I finally told him about the Ouija board. I don't know why I told him. Maybe because I had no one else to talk to. He insisted we attempt to make contact. I didn't want to. He started a voice recorder on his phone and began talking, asking questions, stupid questions. I took no part. I was embarrassed that he could be so dumb. 15 minutes of this. 30 minutes. 45. An hour. You brought this bullshit here, he said. You talk to it. I didn't want to. It was silly, embarrassing, but I knew the consequences of telling him no. So, I said the only thing that came to mind. Have you been with me this whole time? Huey, do you think I'm your mother? That was good enough for him. He stopped the recording. I was ready to go back to bed and forget the whole thing. Of course though, he had to play it back. So we listened. We listened for 15 minutes. 30 minutes. 45. An hour. There was nothing there. Just his rambling, talking to an empty room, asking his stupid questions. Then the recording played back my own voice. Have you been with me this whole time? Huey, do you think I'm your mother? There it was. Stop the recording. Go back a few seconds. Listen closely. Your mother? Mom. That's all he said. That one simple word. It all came crashing together in my mind like tidal waves crashing against the cliffs. I unleashed something that day. That day 2 little girls played with a Ouija board. He's always been with me. He's never left my side. He tried to protect me. He tried to protect me. For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. I left a few days later. I called my mother and told her I was ready. She came right away. We packed up my life. We packed up my son's life. She took us home. We were safe. Huey didn't make any more appearances. Life became normal for the first time in 2 years. We were happy. We moved on, my son and I. I eventually met someone new. Things were good. He was good. We moved in together. Life was so good. But he drank. He came home one night after a bit too much whiskey and we fought. He never raised a hand to me, but we fought. We yelled. We screamed. We cried. And we went to bed. Our sleep was short-lived. I awoke to him jumping out of bed and running down the hallway. I sat up waiting and listening. When he came back to bed, he looked confused, disturbed. I know I saw your son run down the hallway. I heard him laughing too. He's in bed asleep. Everything I have told you up to this point, I told to him that night. We didn't go back to sleep. We talked until our morning alarms went off. He never drank again. In fact, we're happily married now. My son sometimes talks about his brother. We laugh and brush it off, but we wonder. Sometimes we hear the pitter-patter of little feet late at night. We don't bother checking anymore. We know who it is. My little boy, my protector.